Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 34 of our reading of Rod Serling's Twilight Zone 26 Unforgettable Explorations into the Realm of the Supernatural, adapted by Walter B. Gibson. Now we're going to go over the copyright information, which should be on the screen right now. Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone is copyright 1963 by Cayuga Productions Incorporated, and Rod Serling's Twilight Zone Revisited is copyright 1964 by Cayuga Productions Incorporated, all rights reserved. This 1983 edition was published by Bonanza Books, distributed by Outlet Book Company, a Random House company, and the address is there if you want it. This book was previously published as two separate works entitled Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone and Rod Serling's Twilight Zone Revisited, printed and bound in the United States of America, and the information is there. And we met Rick and Abner. And Abner is a bit of an occultist, and Rick is interested in some really special magic. And we'll find out what happens. We've been reading from the fire. We're going to continue our reading of The Fiery Spell. There is only one thing that can put them out, declared Folsom, as he pocketed the money, and that is milk. Just watch from the doorway, and as soon as I extinguish him, take a quick look into the store and see what happens then. Folsom poured some milk into a saucer and used his fingers to flick the liquid on to the candle flames. They were extinguished in quick succession, and Rick turned to the front room in time to see the human tabulae come to life as though they were playing a game of They had been playing a game of statues. Ozzy finished his checker jump and grinned at his opponent, who began stroking his white beard. Mort continued a half-choked laugh and put the postcard back in the rack. Matilda finished her sale and took a dime from the boy, who walked out the door eating his candy, followed by the cat, which by then had landed on the floor and stretched itself. Nobody seemed to realize that anything unusual had happened, least of all Ozzy and Mort. When Ozzy saw Rick, he said, "Let's go, boss. Blimp will be tired of waiting." Mort grinned and announced, "You owe me money, boss. I just took 2 out of 3 games from my friend here." "Okay," Rick told him. "Go on out to the car and I'll be right with you, after I say goodbye to old Doc." The back room had a slightly acrid odor as a result of the blue flames, but by then Folsom had packed the hypnotic hand back in the box along with a copy of the incantation. "If you ever need more wax," Folsom told Rick, "I can make it up for you, but always have milk ready when you use the hand. Tell me, Doc, what do you suppose makes it work?" "The evil influence," Folsom assured him. "It stems from a murderer's undying hatred towards the world. Persons who witness the ritual, as you and I did, are not affected. They simply relay its hypnotic force to overpower others, animals as well as people, but only under the same roof at the time when the hand is first lighted. Then if the kid had come in for the candy after everyone else had gone into a trance, it wouldn't have worked on him at all." "Not at all," Folsom gave a chuckle. "Seeing people standing like so many dummies would have scared him so bad that he would be running yet, but he wouldn't have gone into a stupor. Now I know just as much as I didn't know before," declared Rick in parting, "except that the thing works because I've seen it. That's all I need to know. So long, Doc. But remember your promise to use the Hand of Glory only for your personal protection." "Of course, Doc. I wouldn't think of doing anything else." Old Doc Folsom failed to catch the sarcasm in Rick's tone. He didn't know that the word protection in Rick's vocabulary meant the same as a license for committing crime. That became apparent elsewhere. After Rick joined the others in the car, they drove halfway across the county. Blimp, a heavily built man who formed the 4th member of the party, did most of the talking as they rode along. "It's going to be tough, Rick," insisted Blimp. "Cracking that safe up at the Randall place, with all the family there, and 3 or 4 servants besides. We ought to wait until most of them are away. Except When that old lady goes away, Rick reminded him, she takes her jewels with her and or else puts them in her safe deposit box. There's other jewelry in the safe too, remarked Ozzy. The stuff Randall is giving his daughter for a wedding present. That will be gone after she gets married next Monday. And all those paintings Randall bought in Europe, added Mort. He's supposed to be going to give them to a big art museum. When he does, our chance of grabbing them is gone. So we stick our necks into a trap, argued Blimp, and get ourselves caught. If just one person in the house wakes up and hears us, we'll be goners. The rest of them will be on us in 2 minutes. But nobody's going to wake up, declared Rick. I didn't stop at Folsom's Corners for nothing. I figured old Doc would have the answer to our problem. He had it. Now I have it. When Rick Hendry spoke with such confidence, nobody demanded further details. Conversation switched to other subjects, and soon the group stopped at a country nightclub called the Red Feather, where they had dinner and stayed to watch the floor show. Between times, Rick looked over a floor plan of the Randall Mansion, which Blimp had prepared while working with a crew of house painters who had decorated the place in preparation for the wedding. The safe is behind a big mirror on the dining room wall, explained Blimp, but the art gallery is on the second floor. Old man Randall's room is right next to it, and they said he sleeps like a cat, ready to wake up at anything. Tonight, Rick promised, nothing will wake him. It better hadn't, because he's a big game hunter and has a whole collection of guns, all loaded. All 3 sons are sportsmen too, and both the chauffeur and the horse trainer look like guys who would be tough to handle. About the chauffeur, asked Rick, does he sleep in the house or in the garage? In the house. There aren't any living quarters in the garage. And the horse trainer, does he sleep in the stable? No, only the grooms sleep there, but there's none of them around right now because most of the horses have been taken south. Rick's face showed a satisfied gleam, but then became a trifle anxious as he queried, what about the dogs? Are they kept in kennels or in the house? In the kennels, except for one that sleeps in the house. Tell me, Blimp, how late do the people stay up in the house? Rick went on. Until about midnight. That's when Randall's son, Bob, will be getting home. He comes out on the train from New York, picks up his car at the station, and drives out to the house. Well, wait until 1 o'clock then. Rick's decision pleased Ozzy and Mort, as it meant they could see the midnight show, but Blimp still fretted. People are apt to notice that big fancy car of yours, Rick, he declared. If somebody reports it to the state cops, they won't have much trouble tracing it. And that, chuckled Rick, we'll take them to the garage we stole it from this afternoon, where it won't be missed until tomorrow. By then, we will have ditched it. Blimp subsided after that, but when they left the Red Feather at 1 a.m., he proposed a new precaution. On the road we're taking, stared Blimp, there's a turnout where an old bridge used to be. We'd better pull in there and wait in case a patrol is trailing us, the way they do with strange cars. Rick accepted Blimp's advice. When they reached the turnout, he pulled in and parked behind a clump of evergreens, where he turned off the motor and the lights. A few minutes later, a police car passed by and continued on the non-existent trail. Rick laughed as he turned on the ignition and used the backup lights to return to the road. Nice guessing, Blimp, he complimented. Now, how do we get to Randall's? Next left, directed Blimp, and up Laurel Hill. They took the obscure turn, made the climb, and came to a huge gateway that marked the entrance to the Randall estate. The car continued along a driveway through a woods until Blimp supplied another warning. Slower now, and douse those lights. Rick complied, and they emerged beside a rolling lawn where a vast gray stone mansion sprawled like a monster in the moonlight. At Blimp's suggestion, Rick swung the car beneath the drooping shelter of some weeping willow trees. There, the group stepped from the car and waited until drifting clouds dimmed the moonlight. Then, cat-like, they crept across the lawn to the side door of the great dark house. Blimp unlocked the door with the duplicate of the key he had secretly stolen and returned. Rick gestured for Blimp to lead the way. Then Rick spoke in an undertone to Ozzy and Mort. Wait here and let me know if any lights show from upstairs in a few minutes. It won't matter. In a few minutes it won't matter. Then I'll call you. Inside, Blimp led the way to the darkened dining room, where Rick noted a metal casement window with a broad ledge that showed plainly in the moonlight. He opened the box that he had carried beneath his arm, brought out the grisly hand, and set it upright on the ledge. While Blimp watched in amazement, Rick lighted the waxen tapers one by one, muttering the cabalistic words. Sator, Aripo, Tenant, Opera, Rotas. By the flickering blue flame, Rick then read the incantations exactly as Folsom had. Blimp, his fat face utterly agape, was duly impressed by the command for all beneath the roof to remain spellbound while the flames persisted, but he was really alarmed when Rick added loudly, "Behold the hand of glory." "Easy, boss, easy," gasped Blimp. "You'll have the whole house awake." "Not a chance, Blimp." Rick went to the side door and called, "Come in, you guys. I've got something to show you." Ozzy and Mort rushed in, and their faces were more startled than Blimp's. They had drawn their revolvers as though expecting to shoot it out with the household. When Rick gestured to the grotesque hand with the flaming thumb and fingers, Ozzy and Mort halted, sensing that they were on the threshold of the uncanny. They had seen enough of Folsom's talismans to recognize that this must be one, and a very special one at that. They were impressed, too, by the strange hush that pervaded the mansion. Rick stressed it when he told them, "Go upstairs and look around, then let me know what you find there. Turn on lights as you go. They won't matter now." Ozzy and Mort started through the hallway, then up a broad staircase, gingerly at first, but becoming bolder as they proceeded. Meanwhile, Rick turned on the dining room lights, removed the mirror from the wall, and set it beside a heavy buffet table, which was stocked with plates, dishes, and bottles of various types. Behind the mirror was the safe that Blimp had mentioned. Rick, who was an expert safecracker, promptly went to work on the combination, hoping that his trained fingertips could sense it from the fall of the tumblers inside. All the while, the hand of glory cast its lurid, flickering glow on the scene, thickening the eerie silence as minutes passed and the hush deepened until finally Ozzy and Mort returned more awed than when they had left. They watched Rick finger the safe dial, and when at last he paused, Ozzy exclaimed, "Walking away with those paintings will be a cinch. You could throw a hootenanny up there without waking anybody. Why, everyone upstairs is dead to the world, Rick." "You never saw anything like it." "Except that I did," Rick said coolly. "Only this afternoon over at Folsom Corners. Doc and I tested the gimmick and found that it worked." Rick gestured to the flaming hand, and his companion, staring dumbfounded. It was Mort who asked incredulously, "You mean on us?" "That's right." Rick followed with a play-by-play description of the scene at the Rural Mart, detailing the poses of the persons in the tableau. Hearing it, recognition stirred his listeners. I did get kind of hung up when I made that winning jump," Ozzy recalled. It was funny the way the old timer kept staring at me across the checkerboard. And that postcard I was looking at, declared Mort, the one with a picture of a fellow cranking the crazy looking old car and saying, "You oughto go, but you don't." It seemed like I read it over a couple of times. "I saw the kid go in the store," said Blimp, "and he stayed so long I began to wonder what was going on inside. It seemed like the place had gone dead all of a sudden." "Now you know why," declared Rick with a laugh, "so let's get this safe job over with. And I don't get the if I don't get the combo pretty quickly we blow it. Nobody will hear it if we do." The others watched while Rick resumed his manipulations, talking almost to himself as he often did when working on combinations of a safe. "Take a look in the refrigerator. Maybe we'll want a snack before we leave, and I'll be needing some milk. Not now, but when we're ready to go. So make sure there's some. Milk is the only thing that will put out this blue fire." "So why," interrupted Mort, "should you put it out?" "Yeah," agreed Ozzy. "That way everyone is asleep. Why worry? There's even a big pooch upstairs playing dead. He'd make trouble if he woke up," put in Mort, "and so would the people. So why let them wake up?" "'Cause we want it to look like nothing happened," snapped Rick, "so we can pull more jobs like this. Understood?" Mort and Ozzy nodded that they understood. "And we could use the hand again," added Rick, "without going back to Doc Folsom's for more wax or refills or charms or whatever else he peddles. So shut up and let me get back to work." With that, Rick turned again to the safe. Moments of silence followed while Rick concentrated on his job. Then he paused and tilted his head slightly. The others expected the safe to open, but Rick was no longer listening to the tumblers. Anxiously, he asked, "Did you hear it? Something from outside." A faint hum reached the listeners. Ozzy dismissed it with the comment, "It's just a plane going over." But Blimp was more familiar with this area. His fat face showed worry as he exclaimed, "It's a car coming in from the gate." "Turn out all the lights," ordered Rick. "Here in the dining room, any you left on in the hall upstairs." The others hurried to obey, and by the time they were back, a pair of headlights was emerging from the trees and were following the curve of the driveway around towards the garage at the rear of the mansion. By then, the only light in the house was the blue flickering from the flaming hand in the dining room window, but the driver of the car could not have noticed it because there was a slight rise of ground between. "It must be Bob Randall," Blimp informed Rick. "I guess his train came in late or something." Ozzy and Mort were prompt with suggestions. "Let's get out back and head him off, or slide upstairs and lay for him." "Stay right here," snapped Rick, "and keep quiet. Give me time to turn in and go to. Okay. Stay right here," snapped Rick, "and keep quiet. Give him time to turn in and go to sleep like the rest. We'll have to be careful not to wake him, that's all." Bob Randall had a key to the back door. He came in that way from the garage and went up the back stairs on the second floor. Bob was a nice-looking chap in his early 20s, but tonight he was fuming because he had found that the battery of his car was dead when he had tried to start it at the railroad station. That had meant a half an hour of phone calls before he could rouse the owner of the local service station, and another half hour before the man brought him another battery. It had taken more time to install it, and on top of that, there had been the long drive home, so at the door of his own room, Bob paused to wonder if there was anyone awake who would like to hear about his troubles. The pause told him that something was amiss. Never before had the house been so profoundly quiet. Nobody called to Bob, nor was there ever the faintest sound of a familiar snore from any of the open doorways. Puzzled, Bob looked into one bedroom and saw his brother Fred facing straight up into the moonlight. In another room, Bob's father was equally sound asleep in a similar position. Neither seemed at all relaxed. Yet they did not stir. Really worried now, Bob knocked at his sister Pauline's door because she was the lightest sleeper of all and was apt to be disturbed by the slightest sound. Indeed, Bob was already wondering why Pauline hadn't heard him prowling about the hallway. Ordinarily, she would have opened her door by now and find out who it was. When there was no response to his light but repeated knock, Bob opened the door and saw Pauline half reclining on the side of the bed. She had a dressing gown draped over her shoulders, and her hand was extended towards a bed lamp. She was posed exactly as if she had heard something and had started to turn on the light, only to be frozen through the intervention of some mysterious force. Oddly, instead of facing toward the door from which the sound logically would have come, Pauline was turned towards the far corner of the room. Bob's own eyes followed the same direction, and he saw Bolivar, their handsome Irish setter that often slept in Pauline's room. The dog's reddish form was clearly visible in the moonlight, and his head was partly lifted from one paw, as though he had been half awakened, yet his eyes were closed. Pauline's eyes were closed too, otherwise Bob would have supposed that both she and the dog were hypnotized. But if they had been, apparently they had gone back to sleep. As Bob analyzed it, something had awakened Pauline, and she had called to Bolivar. The setter must have been responding when a new and sudden slumber overtook them both. Bob stepped into the hallway, closed the door, and listened tensely. Gripped by the unexplainable, he was fearful Fred and Pauline might be dead, and that everyone else in the house may have suffered the same fate, yet common sense told him that this could not be, that his strained imagination was influenced by the vague uncertainty of the tricky moonlight. At the same time, an inward foreboding warned him not to turn on a light. It would do little good, he thought, to learn that a strange sleep rather than the grip of death held sway within the house. If he too fell victim to that weird invisible force, he should have to trace the source of this incredible influence that seemed to paralyze its victims and hang them in delicate balance between sleep and death. Bob moved towards the wide stairway, wondering whether some odorless gas had crept up from downstairs. He was thinking, too, that supersonic vibrations might be responsible. Whatever the case, the sheer prospect of some unknown horror retarded Bob's footsteps, giving him the urge to turn, rush out by the back stairs and drive away before the unearthly dynamism trapped him too. Then one step more showed Bob the faint glimmer of a wavering blue light below. Its very vacillation ended his own hesitancy. The flicker offered a tangible solution to the mystery that gripped the house. So Bob continued down the broad stairway, regardless of impending danger. Lured on by the bluish light, he finally reached the dining room and viewed the grisly object that flamed from the window ledge. One glance at the macabre hand of glory told Bob Randall that this must somehow be responsible for the strange trance that had overwhelmed his family upstairs. But now he suspected that a human agency lay behind it. Instead of approaching the blazing hand, Bob turned to the big buffet table, pushed aside a jar of instant coffee and a bottle of ketchup to reach for an object that suited him better. A huge metal nutcracker. Bob flung the nutcracker at the flaming hand, but it went wide. He pawed for another missile and came up with a silver sugar bowl. By now, figures were springing up from the darkness, and Bob found himself confronted by two men with revolvers, Ozzie and Mort. From the darkness came Rick's voice. "No guns, you fools. Just grab him. That's all. We can put out those flames no matter what." Oh, that's all. He can't put out the flames no matter what he throws. That gave Bob the moment he needed to let fly with the sugar bowl, which only proved that Rick was right. The bolt struck the blazing hand squarely, which toppled it back against the thick window pane, but the bluish flame burned uninterrupted. When Ozzy and Mort were pocketing their guns, Bob dodged away and grabbed the ketchup bottle next. He scored another hit, but when the bottle broke, the ketchup merely splashed the window where the hand of glory blazed on. Now Blimp hooked a burly forearm around Bob's neck, hauling him backwards and half choking him while Bob grabbed frantically for something else to throw and finally found an object. Ozzy called a warning. "Look out, Blimp!" He grabbed the coffee jar. "Don't let him conk you with it." We're going to have to stop it here. We have been reading from the Twilight Zone, specifically the Fiery Spell. Yeah, the Fiery Spell. We've been reading again from Rod Serling's Twilight Zone. 26 Unforgettable Explorations is the realm of the supernatural, and it is adapted by Walter B. Gibson. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, want to support me in any way, if you want to join the Discord server, all the information will be in the description below. And thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.